Hi there, my name is Alex, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about chronic fatigue, how it works, and how to remedy it. So let me share my screen here real quick. So, chronic fatigue syndrome, or CFS. What is chronic fatigue syndrome? Chronic fatigue syndrome is essentially poor energy delivery. It's when the energy demand is greater than the energy delivery that the body can provide. Every single cell in the body needs energy. And so if there's not enough energy provided for the cells, then the cells in their respective organs are going to start failing. And that's when you start to see the classic chronic fatigue syndrome symptoms. Chronic fatigue is almost always associated with a suppressed immune system. And this immune system is suppressed for a number of different reasons, but typically the immune system is there when it's healthy and getting rid of and protecting the body from any of the triggers that will cause this poor energy delivery mechanism. Myalgic encephalitis, or ME, is chronic fatigue syndrome plus inflammation, such as infection, allergy, or autoimmunity. Here are a few symptoms of chronic fatigue. We have mental and physical fatigue, poor mood, anxiety, and depression, as well as muscle problems. Now, these neurological problems and muscle problems can be due to a lactic acid intolerance, which I will be going further into later on. We also have light, noise, heat, and cold intolerance. Now, our eyes require energy 10 times faster than our brains, and that is 100 times faster than the rest of our bodies. So you can imagine somebody who is in an energy deficit having some serious intolerance, especially in their eyes, to light, because there's so much input going on constantly in their eyes, and they can become very sensitive. We also have circulatory and respiratory problems, poor immunity, like I mentioned before, poor digestion and liver function, hormone imbalance, and also low or no libido. Now, the body has a very ingenious way of managing its energy, especially if it's low. It's going to prioritize the things that are keeping the body and the person alive. And libido and reproduction comes in at the very bottom, because the body knows that it does not have enough energy and strength to worry about having a baby and reproducing. So, two key symptoms of chronic fatigue that I want to focus on today are, number one, very poor stamina, or poor energy recycling. And an example of this would be somebody who is at a college lecture. Let's say it's a 2-hour lecture, and after 45 minutes to an hour, they are totally unable to go on. They've used up all of their energy to focus on what their professor is saying, and they need to go to bed immediately. We also have number two, which is delayed fatigue, or waiting for new energy production. And an example of this would be somebody who does a workout. It could be an intense workout, and the following day, they do not have enough energy to get out of bed, and they are stuck in bed for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours or more as they recover from what they did the previous day. Why are symptoms so important? For chronic fatigue, especially, but all illnesses, our body is trying to communicate that something is wrong. There's an imbalance somewhere. The problem with our current lifestyles is that they are based and focused on productivity. And so instead of slowing down and trying to identify and figure out where this imbalance is coming from, we opt for taking a symptom suppressor, like a prescription drug or something like that a doctor will give. And this can be, totally counterproductive, because it can make the person's energy deficit even worse as they continue to go along doing the things that got them there in the first place. So one really quick note I want to point out is that many people today do not know how close to their edge is, their edge being how close they are to getting an illness. And with our productive lifestyles and with the amount of stress we have, with the amount of toxic triggers we might have, it's very important to get an understanding of that and push yourself as far away from the edge as you can. This is even more important due to the fact that we have COVID-19 going around, with all of these people going around. If they have high stress, suppressing their immune systems, they can acquire COVID-19 and get it in the long haul if they aren't able to fight it off and get many other illnesses. So something to keep in mind going forward. Here are some risk factors for CFS. We have a poor diet and low-fat diet. Now, a low-fat diet is very dangerous for getting chronic fatigue because fat is the fuel for our immune system. And when you have a suppressed immune system, you are putting yourself at risk of getting chronic fatigue. You also have a high toxic load. And very commonly for many people with chronic fatigue is to be a perfectionist or have a go-getter personality. As somebody who had chronic fatigue and has since recovered from chronic fatigue, I had to recognize my perfectionist personality. And I thought that I was just being lazy and I could outrun my chronic fatigue, but it really just made my symptoms worse. So really important to address that if that is someone or that is your type of personality. We also have a stressful lifestyle, lack of sleep, poor mitochondrial and thyroid function, as well as addiction. And I've already touched on these, but here are some more causes of chronic fatigue. We also have aging and allergy and addiction. Many people get into addictions, whether it be to chronic carbohydrate consumption or a recreational drug, and they release dopamine, but they can be very draining on the body and cause an energy deficit as well. We have infectious triggers such as viral, bacterial, parasitic, and fungal, chemical triggers, and also physical and emotional triggers. 2/3 of all of the energy we use is meant for just keeping us alive, our basal metabolic rate. This leaves 1/3 remaining energy for us to decide how to use it. We need to choose wisely. It can be very helpful to think about our energy delivery systems, like a car. And this example was made by a fantastic doctor by the name of Dr. Sarah Myhill, who wrote a fantastic book on chronic fatigue. I highly recommend you guys check it out. We have our mitochondria as the engine, diet and gut as fuel, circulation as fuel delivery. Our accelerator pedal and gearbox are our thyroid and adrenals. Sleep, repair, detox is our catalytic converter. And then we need a very thoughtful driver that represents our brain. So here we have energy. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is the universal currency of energy that we use. As you'll notice, this is the molecule here. Over on the left, we have a triple phosphate or triphosphate molecule. That's important to keep in mind as we go forward. Energy is transported in many different forms throughout the body, and our body is going to choose what type of energy to use based on the situation that it finds itself in. So we have faster access fuels here, energies that are quick and easy to use, easy to access, like glucose, short chain fatty acids, or pyruvate, and then slower access fuels such as ketones and long chain fatty acids. And these are more efficient fuels to use. All fuels are converted into acetate, which the mitochondria love to use. How do we make energy? So that acetate that I spoke about is converted into NADH, and the NADH is used to produce ATP as well as ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. And adenosine diphosphate is this molecule over here. And as you'll notice, it has 2 phosphates, or diphosphate, compared to ATP having 3. And ATP is converted into ADP in order to pass through the cell walls. And then once inside of the cell, it is converted back into ATP. Something to note is that there is only enough ATP in our bodies at any one time for 10 heartbeats. So being able to create new ATP and recycle ATP is extremely important to keeping up. If the cell is not efficient at recycling ATP, then it needs to find energy elsewhere. And it can do this by converting the ADP into another molecule called AMP, or adenosine monophosphate, which is over here. And it only has one single phosphate molecule on the left. Now, the problem with using AMP is that it is recycled very slowly. And this can cause poor stamina, which is key symptom number 1 that I talked about before. So in low energy availability, it will switch from the ATP or aerobic metabolism into an anaerobic metabolism. And this uses the faster fuels, such as sugar. Now, the problem with this is that it's much less efficient. In an aerobic metabolism, you're getting anywhere from 32 to 36 ATP molecules. In anaerobic metabolism, it only creates 2 ATP molecules while also releasing a lactic acid byproduct. Now, this is lactic acid over here. Now, if you recall from earlier, I said that many neurological or muscular problems can be due to lactic acid buildup. Lactic acid is released after a workout, and you can get sort of a burning sensation in your muscles. And this is keeping you from overworking. It's keeping your body safe, essentially. It's keeping you in homeostasis. It's a protective mechanism. Now, the problem is that many people can get stuck in this lactic acid metabolism of making energy. And it can create serious mental and physical fatigue if you are constantly stuck in that pathway. And processing the lactic acid requires 6 ATP molecules. So if you're already not good at making the ATP, then you're going to have a very hard time clearing up this lactic acid and recycling the ATP that you need. And this can create delayed fatigue, which is key symptom number 2, like I spoke about before. So now that we have a basic understanding of chronic fatigue, here are some strategies to help reverse it. So first and foremost, most importantly, is to listen to your body, rest, and lower your stress. Let's say that you have $100 worth of energy to spend on a daily basis. For somebody with chronic fatigue to recover quickly and efficiently, they should only be spending around $10 of that energy per day. And that means totally resting, not doing anything on a daily basis, at least until they get to a point where they feel like they can add some of those activities back into their life. Next, we have emotional management. Many people who have addictions to chronic carbohydrate consumption or recreational drugs, they are doing that because they are in need of feel-good hormones to help manage their emotions. So those can be very non-productive, damaging practices. And so we want to get them managing their emotional needs in a much more beneficial, positive way. And that can be in playing board games, having a conversation with an old friend, going for a walk, these kinds of things. Next, we have limbic system and circadian rhythm management. Our limbic system is the part of our nervous system that interacts with the outside world and is our emotional response, essentially. So somebody who has a lot of anxiety dealing with the outside world can benefit by gratitude journaling, meditating, listening to classical music, rewiring the curves in their brain that way. And then we have circadian rhythm work. Many people with chronic fatigue end up becoming night owls because they are unable to make the correct hormones to help them sleep in a healthy way. And so getting in light early in the morning and stopping the light access at night can really help the body make the correct hormones that it needs, such as serotonin in the morning and melatonin before bed. We also have fixing the diet and reversing fermenting gut. Many people with chronic fatigue have fermenting gut, and that is essentially due to a overgrowth of bad opportunistic bacteria in the gut. And when you eat certain carbohydrates like starches and sugars, these foods ferment from the overgrowth of bacteria. It can release inflammation and toxins that hinder digestion and can be a real strain on the body. So starving those opportunistic bacteria by eliminating those foods and prioritizing saturated fats, which are the fuel of the immune and nervous system, will immediately provide benefits for people with chronic fatigue. And then we have regular detox, such as saunaing or Epsom salt baths. When I first started out in my healing for chronic fatigue, I could only handle 3 to 5 minutes in my near infrared sauna a day. It took a couple months for me to get to the point where I could even, start sweating in the sauna, but it's very important to go slow, as well as also avoiding any sort of toxic exposure there may be for the person with chronic fatigue. And finally, we have addressing micronutrient deficiencies. Energy metabolism requires many different micronutrients and minerals, especially magnesium, vitamin B3, vitamin B12, as well as enzyme CoQ10. So that is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any questions, and leave a like, subscribe. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.